another episode of Teen G.E.N Talks podcast, where the goal is to empower the youth of Glendale and connect youth to community resources, individuals, and organizations through interviews and discussions. I'm your host, Melissa.
And I'm Desiree. And today it's a special episode because we are coming from the Central Library live here at the Be the Change Book Festival, where it's a day to celebrate diversity in reading.
Yes, and we hope you enjoy the compilation of author talks that we've had today.
Well, when I was younger, I always liked to write different stories, short stories, poems, and so that just has always inspired me to kind of write whatever I'm feeling or thinking of. Well, I hope that with my time with Papa, it will help people just remember good times with loved ones that they have lost. This book inspired me because my stepfather passed away in 2019. And so I wanted his family to have something that they can remember him by throughout the years, and especially his granddaughter, which is my niece. She was 3 when he passed away, so she won't have those loving memories that I had. So I think especially with the times that we're having right now with COVID, a lot of families can, use this book to touch upon those that they lost and help children remember that it's not a bad thing, but it's something that we all have to go through. It was really therapeutic for me just to write that because I have known him since I was 4 or 5 years old. And so for me, thinking about his granddaughter, she didn't have all those memories that I was privileged to have, and it just was, it was really helpful just to tie everything in and just be like, honoring him and how can I give back to his family. So it was important to me to do something like that was thoughtful. Well, I just try to think about things like my life. Of course, with this deals with loss and grief. So that was what was going on at the time. My new children's books, hopefully that will be published in the next coming years, will do to my faith. And so just bringing that to kids and letting them know how I feel about Jesus and what he can represent in their lives. The art was very important to me because since it is a personal story, I didn't want it just to look like anybody. So with the illustrator, I wanted to make sure that he can capture the likeness of my stepfather and his granddaughter and also his daughter, who's also a little bit in the book. So it was very important because for me, I wanted his mother, who lost her son, to be able to look at that cover and immediately know that was her son. So it was important to capture all of those moments, and especially with him, I put a little illustrations in there as far as he was in the Air Force. He worked for United Airlines. So there was things that I wanted the illustrator to capture that were going to be important to us, but not to everybody else. So we knew it was more our book, in a sense. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It makes it more special.
Yeah, it makes it special for our family, but also for others who are going through those things. They can still use that book for the healing process as well. I think what we can learn is the fact that it is something that we all have to go through. It just doesn't make it easy. And so if we just can think of that person in a positive light, just think of the things how that person made us feel, or memories of, I remember we used to go to the pet store or something like that. Those things will jog those memories in you that will make your heart flutter instead of oh my gosh, it's, the end. But because you'll know eventually, depending on what you believe, if you're going to see them again. So for us, I feel like with this book, it will just teach people to remember the good times and stay positive. I'm currently reading Now What? 50 Easy Scriptures on Beginning and Maintaining a Life in Christ, which is I wrote. And it's actually a really good application for like morning reading, my perspective on certain scriptures in the Bible that people can say, oh, okay, I didn't, remember that, or this is something I can memorize. And then how can you apply that scripture to your life? So it's something that you can do on a daily and just continue with it.
Thank you so much for taking
You're
your
welcome.
time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, you can definitely connect with me on my website, spiritualgrowthministries.com, or also on Instagram, spiritual_growth_men, and or by email, spiritualgrowthmen@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking
You're
your time.
welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
You know what? That's a journey in the making. So my background is in entertainment. So I started out as a radio personality, and then I shifted over to entertainment correspondent, where I interview celebrities. So it was actually movie stars, and then I went into being a producer. So I always had a passion of highlighting inspirational and motivational stories, and then this book became a book because of my documentary that I released. And so I decided to turn my documentary into some type of a book, a book. And that's how it came about. Oh man, they helped me in so many ways. To being a speaker, a communicator, a writer. So that definitely was like the foundation for what I'm doing now, my true purpose. I think it's important to tell stories because we all have unique stories, right? We all have like trials and tribulations. My genre is, self-help and personal development. And I was just talking to a guy out there that I just met. And by the way, this is such a great event. This is such a great event. You guys got to do this every year. But I was just talking to a guy out there that I just met, and I was like, how we all have a different, unique story, and if we turn that and package that into a book, it can help someone else, And I always feel that, your story was not for you in per se, it was for someone else to hear, to help them go through, to inspire, to empower them. My documentary talked about the journey of successful individuals, because Instagram, the platform Instagram, is such an instant gratification. We see people post on Instagram, they post the best parts of their life, and what's missing is that middle part. So I wanted to create a documentary where I knew like 5 or 6 very successful people in entertainment, and they talked about that entire journey, not just skipping to the ending part. So I decided to turn that documentary into a book, but sharing my journey in the entertainment industry and how I was told no so many times. I felt stuck. I felt like I had reached my ceiling. So it was some strategies that I did to stay inspired throughout my journey. So it's like 11 different steps in here that I have in my book that will help the next person just stay inspired. Like one of the things that I say is, being grateful, like, changing your mindset, visualizing or manifestation, So those are some of the steps that I talk about in the book. You know what? I would definitely tell them I know it's hard, but try to be patient, try to be grateful. I feel like if you always are striving for the next best thing to try to spark your happiness, you'll never be happy, because once you get that next thing that you want, then it'll be something else that you aspire to have. So I just feel like, even with myself, I feel like, the more that I was just grateful for life, for family, for a great wife, things of that nature, it makes that happiness, I create my own happiness, So, I know it kind of sounds lame in a sense, but, just being grateful for what you do have in your life. So it's 2 books. So one book is Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. That's a very good book on finance. I feel that book, it should be actually taught in schools. Coming out of high school, I feel like, for myself, if I was taught, financial literacy, it could have prevented me from, making some of the mistakes financially that I made in my life. And then secondly, I would say Seasons of Life, Jim Rome. I just started reading that book, but it just talks about different seasons, the ups and downs of your life. But it puts it in a perspective where, even though you may look at your life in one season as nothing is going right, you're just in that learning phase. You're just learning and preparing for your true purpose. So Jim Rome and Robert Kiyosaki. Absolutely. So right now I am launching a course. Actually, I teach students live on how to write nonfiction books. Aspiring authors write nonfiction, high-quality books. So right now I'm putting together a recorded course where people can go online and actually learn how to pretty much write a nonfiction book. So that's what I'm working on right now. I have something up March 20th. There'll be like half of the course be up. The full course will be up by June. Oh, and you can follow me on J Styles, Jay Styles TV, all social media.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for doing
Thank you. Thank you.
The library means to me kind of like a community coming together. I've always came here ever since I was really small. I remember my mom would take me and she would take me to the kids section. We'd always browse through the books. I think the festival is really nice. I've never been to an event like this before, and I wanted to just do some arts and crafts. Probably get out of my house, do something over the weekend too. So it sounded like it was really enjoyable to do. Being a teen in Glendale, it feels like a safe community. I always walk home and I've never really felt like I was in danger, and the people here are nice too.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Oh gosh. Well, I was actually born here in Burbank. I am fortunate enough that my dad was actually in the entertainment industry, so I grew up actually around animation. He started in features with Disney, so I knew the process of storyboarding, and I got kind of a rough idea of how stories functioned and that sort of thing. I wrote my first book when I was 19.
Wow.
It's bad. That's okay. But it was still a book that I finished, that I got published, and it kind of gave me the writing bug. From then, I spent 10 years just sort of getting life experiences and living and hanging with friends and writing more books. And I ended up writing, I was drawn to romance as a genre. I really love understanding people and kind of dissecting people and see what makes them tick, and also see what makes them drawn to each other, that sort of thing. I myself am I knew I was queer from the moment I was in high school, and so with those experiences I wanted to write a whole slate of new diverse stories for maybe people like me who never really saw a queer romance on the shelf or something like that, and I wanted to extend my experience into my stories, and also the experience of a lot of friends that I have and things like that, and try to write as diversely and as all-encompassing as I possibly could. So I have learned that once it's out of your hands, it's out of your hands. So there are, obviously, when you create anything, whether it's a book or a piece of art, a song, a poem, whatever it is, you have intention going into it. Once people have it and, read it, absorb it, however, they take it, they're going to have their own opinions. And one of the things that I've learned, particularly in more independent spaces, is a lot of authors tend to be very guarded about the messages that they're trying to write and the messages that they want to write and want to be understood. And the fact of the matter is people from different walks of life are going to have different interpretations of your work. The best thing you can do as an author, as someone who wants to put creative, work into the world, is to be like, here's my intention, here's what I want this story to be about. But if someone takes something completely different from it, that's what's going to happen. So it's honestly learning to let go and allow the audience to take what they need from your work is probably the most valuable lesson that I've learned. I have always been telling stories, whether it's making up stories with my cousins or wanting to be on stage and portray a character. I have some background in acting as well. I have a need to tell stories. If I was not a published author, and if I did not have a bachelor's in screenwriting, if I was not writing movies and television or whatever, I would be in front of a mirror telling myself stories. Yeah. It is such a huge part of how I function that it really wasn't going to be anything but. And with novel writing, so I have as I mentioned, I have a bachelor's in screenwriting. I've been an option filmmaker. I am working with a small team to get a queer pirate show actually picked up. So when you're working with scripts, it's much more collaborative. You have to rely on other people. There's a lot of when I was working with the director for what's called a proof of concept, which is essentially like filming a small bit with a little bit of money to show studios like this is what it could look like. The director would come in, make these changes to the script. I would make these changes, and then we would work. Same thing when I got my film option. The director and I worked for several months to make sure that the script was ready to go. When you're an author, you work with an editor, but it's a lot more autonomous. You have a lot more control as to what you show, how long it is, the dialogue, what things are going to say. You're not really constrained, especially because it's a book. Right, so the cost of entry is very low, because if you want to write a TV show, you're looking at potentially millions of dollars. Right. If you want to write a book, you're looking at going to bed at 3 a.m. So it's it's very, very different. It's basically a long homework assignment that you like for some reason. So it's you have a lot more freedom. I cannot write small. I have a really big imagination. There's always these big set pieces and there's explosions and there's fantasy and there's all this stuff. So I'm not really constrained to a budget. And it's just been a wonderful avenue for creativity and that sort of thing. And sometimes I make money from it, which is nice because I like money. Yeah. We're gonna go that on the record. I like money. I just finished The Death of Jane Lawrence, which is it's a gothic kind of a darkish romance, which was fun. But a book I recommend, particularly in the gothic genre, is Mexican Gothic, which I loved Mexican Gothic. I finished it in 2 sittings. It's fantastic. Sure. So I live on Twitter. I am Ruthie Writes 91 on Twitter, and I have my big book that I write kind of in the adult sort of. Mm-hmm. But I was reading adult stuff when I was 13, 14. Yeah. My big book is called The Railwalkers, which is a queer revenge western, which has been doing incredibly well. I've written an adaptation for it. It's very, very fun. That's kind of the book that I'm here promoting. And yeah, honestly, Twitter is because that's what has all my things. I have a website, RuthieHansonWork.com, I think. Yes. And I'm always doing stuff. So.
Thank you so much for
Thank you for having me.
Did you enjoy this episode? I'm sure you did. Don't forget to follow us on our socials on Facebook and Instagram at MyGlendaleLAC.
And make sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple or anywhere where you get your podcast from at Teen G.E.N Talks, the podcast. And also make sure to give us a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel Glendale Library Arts and Culture. Bye.
Bye.